In this tutorial, I will be painting a sunset on a lake. I'm using my Himi Gouache paint. It's a set of 24 colors. They're jelly gouache, so they always stay wet. And then I just got some brand new brushes that I want to try out. These are also made by the company Himi, and they are brushes that are made for watercolor or gouache. It's a set of 5, and they're all round brushes. They come in various sizes, the largest being size 12, and the smallest I think is like a 1 or a 2. And I will put the link to the brushes and the paints in my description below in case you're interested in trying them as well. The brushes were about $10, I think, for the set of 5. Now before I begin, I'm going to tape down my watercolor paper. I am painting on Arches watercolor paper. It's 140-pound cold press paper. And the size, I believe, is 9 by 12. I'm going to start with my number 12 round brush, and I'm going to dive right in, literally. I'm starting with a nice bright yellow. I usually try to start with my lightest colors first when I am working on the sky, and then kind of blending into my darker colors. So I'm using some water to kind of help smooth the colors out, and I'm trying to have a nice transition from one to the next. And I'm really going for a nice bright coloring here, so I'm trying to kind of keep the paint nice and bright. Then I'm gradually going from the bright yellow to the orange, and then now I'm adding a little bit of pink as well, which is mixing with the orange a little bit to kind of create this like orangish pinkish glow. I'm just trying to keep my brush strokes nice and horizontal, going back and forth. And while this paint is wet, it blends, so I'm really trying to keep it wet while I am working. Next, I'm going to try to figure out about where the water is going to go. So I'm starting below where the sun is, and then I'm trying to work from light to dark on the bottom section as well. So starting with those light yellows, moving into the oranges, and now down to the pinks. And then I want to get even darker along the bottom. So after the pinks, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of blues and purples too, just to get it nice and dark on the bottom area. So I'm going in with kind of some blues that are mixing with the pinks a little bit and kind of giving it a purpley look as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and let this all dry before I add in some more details. Alright, so my painting has dried. Now I'm going to go in and make kind of what's way off at the horizon line, which is some distant land. I'm using kind of a lavender color for this. I will get it a little bit darker eventually, but I want it to be kind of a little bit lighter since it's way back there. It's getting a lot of the glow from the sky. So I don't want it to be quite as dark as what I will be painting like way in the foreground of my picture. And I'm just trying to create some interesting shapes and add in a little bit of purple. So I started with the lavender, and now I'm adding a little bit of purple. I'm trying to keep the darks on the bottom and then kind of let it work up into the light. I also want to figure out about where I want my dock to be. So I'm using this kind of blue and purple mixture. It's a super dark blue there in the corner of my gouache set, and then the purple right next to it. And then because of the perspective, the dock should be skinny at the far end, and then it should get wider as it gets close to you. So I'm trying to kind of keep that in mind as I am drawing in this dock out into the water. Right now I'm just trying to get a coat of paint on the dock. I will go in and give it a little bit more detail later. Just trying to get a nice solid covering of the blue and the purple. And then I want to indicate some plants and some ground on either side of the dock. So I'm throwing in this kind of ragged line and filling it in with my dark colors, my blue and my purple mixture. And then I am going to add a little bit of that into the distant horizon scenery too. I also want to indicate some plants growing, some grasses, so I'm just using my brush to kind of add in those details. Now I've moved to a smaller brush for this section. I think I'm using maybe a size 6, so it's a little bit thinner than the first one that I used. And now I am drawing in some tree shapes. So I'm throwing some branches in. They can kind of be whatever shape you want. I wanted kind of 2 branches or 2 trunks for this tree. And then I'm just gradually thickening them up. I always keep in mind that trees should be thicker on the bottom and then they should get thinner as they go up. I'm also just dabbing some paint on the tops of some of these grasses so it looks like they're little shrubs or bushes or whatever growing. Could be little flowers growing along the side of the water. I'm going to add some other branches that kind of come off of the main trunks of the tree just to give it some interest. The nice thing about using round brushes are that you can use them and get really nice and thick lines, or you can really hold them just at the tip and get some really skinny lines too. So I'm still using a rather large brush, but I'm getting some nice thin lines. Then here you see I'm holding the round brush sideways to get the different leaf type shapes of the tree. So these brushes are really nice. The ends they're super smooth, super soft, so they work really nicely with gouache or with watercolor and are just really easy to use. I'm really happy with them so far. So I'm just adding all these little shapes of leaves. Some of them aren't even touching anything. They look like they could possibly be floating, which is not a big deal. All right, switching to a smaller size. Now I'm going to get into some little details here. So I've got the posts of the dock that I'm adding in. I'm trying to kind of thicken those up. And I'm trying to make it look like they go kind of into the water. I'm doing that on both sides of the dock. I mean, if you wanted to get fancy, you could have a little boat floating out there, you know, connected to the dot. And then I'm using kind of a lighter color. This is actually like a peachy type color. And maybe with a little bit of brown too, and just to kind of lighten up some of the parts of the dock, because it would be getting some light from the sky still since it's so nice and bright. And so I just wanted to indicate a little bit of light on this dock by making these horizontal brush strokes using some peaches mostly, and then a little bit of brown. You can see that parts of it are basically just turning a lighter blue because my dock is not dry yet, and that's okay. I don't mind the two mixing. I wanted to add a little bit of color into my foreground. I mean, most of this would be very, very dark because the light is behind it, but I wanted to add just some hints of green in here and some of the weeds and the leaves. So I'm using my dark kind of blue-green color and I'm kind of adding those in to the picture. I'm also going to do that on some of these things that are floating above the ground here. And then I want to indicate that some color on the trees as well. So I'm adding a little bit of brown to the trunks, which, I mean, it's still blending in with some of the blue-purple mixture that's there because that's not completely dry, and that's just fine. And then I'm adding some green to the leaves just to kind of indicate a little bit of color there too. Now I wanted to add just a little bit more of a pop of color. Maybe some of these little blades of grass or little bushes are getting a little bit of the light, golden light from the sky. So I'm just adding a little bit of a brighter green here and there. And a couple longer blades of grass or little bushes thrown in there as well. Wanted to lighten up the posts on the dock. Bring a little bit of light in there. A little bit of light in the foreground again. And time to sign my name and call it a masterpiece. I hope you enjoyed watching this little painting take place, and if you want to give it a try, go for it. It's a fun one. Let me know how it goes. If you like my videos, please hit that like button and subscribe down below. Thanks so much for watching.